Welcome back to Tools and Track. In this episode we say so long and thanks for all the fish. Fuel tank time. Why are we jumping all of a sudden randomly to fuel tank? Well, because at some point very soon I'm hoping to get an engine that runs, and in order to do that, yes, we can stuff a fuel pump into a jerry can and hope for the best, but we need to put a fuel tank in here anyway, so let's get this hurdle out of the way as well. Not to mention, we're still around with the chassis anyway, so this is going to need welding, adapting and properly mounting. Well, properly mounting is really the welding and adapting. This is alloy, so there's no chance that my MIG is going to weld it. Therefore, let's see how A, we can properly plumb this in, and B, how we can then make it fuel up an MX-5. And that's going to be a problem. Because of this cheeky little fellow. This is the fuel pump assembly that came out of the MX-5's fuel tank. You will note, came out of the fuel tank. It is an internal mount pump, and float assembly for that matter. Also, we've got some form of fuel pressure regulator or something, I don't know. Anyway, one way or another, this has to be adapted. It's not going to go in this tank. There was options for me to sort that, but we're already blowing budget out of the water, so I'm still trying to limit this to some degree. Therefore, this will also need replaced. That's easy enough done though. Bosch and numerous other companies will do an external mount high pressure fuel pump for not a lot of money, so that doesn't concern me. We'll just adapt the loom. Got 4 wires that go at the back, 2 that tell us how much the float is, and 2 that power the fuel pump, from what I can gather. We just adapt the 2 wires from the loom there into a fuel pump, and then we work out how much fuel we've got at a later date. Like I said numerous times, that's tomorrow's problem. This is today's. Well, this is tomorrow's problem as well, because I don't have an external fuel pump. I've gave the terms and conditions, we'll get the fuel pumps later. Let's mount a tank. So we're now joined by the mighty mechanical loader, who's on gimbal duty.
Hello.
And I have had a wee look around here, and I think we've got something forming a plan. So, as you can see, the fuel tank has a wee area where we would like to think it can live. Similarly, when the tub's on, we'll need to build a frame that will hold the tub and encapsulate this fuel tank. You'll see the most obvious elephant in the room are these 2 support bars, which are supporting the frame, but not the fuel tank. In fact, if anything, they're completely obstructing where this tank could sit, which is a good inch or so closer to the diff. Now, there's no way around this. I'm going to chop these 2 support bars out and reposition them. But as we are chopping them out and repositioning them, and we know a tank of the specific size this is going in, we could get off-piste a wee bit with these plans and design strength, triangulation, and a bracket that will hold this all in one. Now, whilst I say we can move this in a few inches, I still want to give a bit of a gap for the diff to flex and move around. So we're not going to butt it straight onto here. If anything, I reckon 2 inches to orientate this perfectly flat is all we're going to need. So, unfortunately, the first thing we need to do is chop my chassis up.
You built it well.
I really did. Aye, it's certainly in there. We're back to the Operation First Start whiteboard. Now, I've had several nights to stew on this and think about it, and I've come up with something halfway resembling a plan. This is a very, very rudimentary diagram of what the back of the car looks like. This is the diff, this is the lower bar where the suspension pickups are on, and this is the very back. Now remember, we did tack in a wee spar that runs up here and the very back of the chassis. At this point, remember there's bars running up like that, which we don't need to worry about at this point. That sits at 15 degrees. I have remembered that that isn't perfectly flat, and I was debating whether or not I was going to have to make a standoff to get the tank in level. But see, the more I think about it, the tank has a fuel output that sits at the bottom. Well, it would make perfect sense if we actually mount the tank at that 15 degree tilt so that the fuel is always coming out from the very bottom of the tank. I think we're going to frame the tank in using that 15-degree angle. So what we're going to do is, with the tank in place, with its little spout sitting here, we're going to measure that, and off of this frame in the bottom, put a couple of pedestals in. And those pedestals are going to allow us to locate the tank at this end, and then I think we're going to use some, well, angle iron, frankly, to just go between the two of these and locate the tank. Then all we need to do is square off at least 3 sides and then work out some way of strapping the whole guy across the top. Sound like a winner? Well, I hope so, because that's what's going to happen. Now, we're going to take a wee pause here and I'm going to explain something. This whole thinking fourth dimensionally thing. You're probably wondering at this point, considering we're mounting a square tank, why we don't just build a square frame for it. Now, obviously that would look fantastic and make me seem very smart and professional, and also make the tank's rigidity quite strong. Well, what we've got to think about is, we've got our tank, which looks like that from the top, with a little spout coming out the bottom. Spouty spout. So we build a frame all the way around that holds it in place out of angle iron. It'll be quite rigid and it'll work quite well. The only problem is that diff. Now yes, we'll factor in clearance and made sure that it's not going to clatter it when it's running, but we also need to think about poor old me when he inevitably toasts this diff and needs to change it, because there's only one way that that diff can come out. That way, right past where we would be building this frame. So as a result, what we need to consider is future Tommy's problems. Now, we've got our wee pedestals here and here, so that gives us I guess a bit of triangulation. So what I'm going to make sure to do is, in this part here, delete it. We will have enough strength in here with 3.5 sides covered. That will give me clearance to get the diff in and out should I ever need it again. And then we can put some straps over the top to hold the whole thing in. So that is why we're not doing a big frame all the way around it. Except we are. Are you sick of me yet? It's going to be much easier for me to make a whole frame and then chop it out than it's going to be to make it with these corners missing and make sure they're all straight and nothing goes squint. It's a manufacturing thing. Don't worry about it. We'll chop these out later. Why can I not just do things simply? Well, because I've been no fun in it. This isn't actually too bad for me, which is unusual. So I've just started to clamp this down. So I've got 2 pedestals tack welded in the back and the frame, which fits the tank perfectly, by the way. Again, sounding surprised because it's me. What we're going to do here is start thinking about tacking it onto the chassis. However, we have a problem. in the form of this. So one of two things is going on here. There's a warp in this, which is unlikely because it does fit the bottom of the tank really well, or this is too high. So I'm going to take this off because my vibe is if we clamp these down using these and make the pedestals match, we'll be onto a winner because the tank's not wobbling around. So that's the plan now. Lovely. Obviously I'll need to tidy up the other side of that frame so it doesn't look like, well, a fat Glaswegian in a shed built it out of angle iron. But we'll get to that. What we need to do now is find a way to secure this. Now, as you probably imagine, there's no off-the-shelf solution for what I've just built, so we're going to have to make some custom tank straps. What we don't need to worry about is strapping the tank all the way around. We've got a location in the bottom and a location on the sides. What we need to stop it from doing is going up the way. So really, we just need 1, 2, 3 sides strapped and secured on the bottom. So let's measure up what we can work with. We need about 25 inches worth. And as luck would have it, what I've been looking at comes in metre lengths. And we need 62 centimetres each side. Okay, I'll buy 2 metres. So as usual, there's no coherent delivery schedule for online sellers. I'm starting to rant far too much about this in episodes, but you know, it needs saying. The status of delivery stuff in the UK at the moment is not great. Get your act together. Tank straps have been ordered, well, the materials to do it, to come up with some solution, but they've not arrived. But what has arrived is external fuel pump. What hasn't come with it is a bracket to mount it, but that's okay. Like I say, we're building a scratch build kit car, it probably wouldn't have worked anyway. What we are going to do though, is make one now. Of course, before we make a bracket for such a thing, we need to work out where it's going to live. Now, there are many places in the back of this car that can fit it, but I don't want to just use up space willy-nilly. We may have other things that need to go back here, so I don't want to just plant it anywhere and hope for the best. I'm looking at you, TVR, because that's what you did. This instead has to go somewhere quite considerate. Now, we've got lost space with this fuel tank, and I think we're going to have lost space under it. So let's just mount it there. What I'm probably going to do though is mount it a wee bit further back, so I think it'll hang off just here, so it's protected from the top by a bar and from the side by a bar. Granted, there's nothing protecting it from the back, but it's going to be out of the way enough that it's not going to cause a problem. Therefore, we need to get a bracket that'll sit it here. The beauty as well is it'll sit under the tank and it'll mount a lot of annoying fittings and untidy looking stuff out of the way. The other benefit from it being here is that I've already got a whole load of chassis bracing that I can take a fuel line to the front of the car from this point with. Now, why is that important? Well, there is a big stipulation in the IVA that all of your fuel lines do have to be secured at regular intervals. So if I'm going from the fuel tank and following a line down to this pump along actual hard metal, and then from there to the front of the car with even more hard metal, it's going to be a no-brainer. So that's where it's going to live. Let's see if we can get a bracket. Another week later, more parts have arrived. 4 key parts that are going to get this tank properly mounted for good, which will probably wrap up the episode. So, first up, the best thing I can describe this as is engineer's tape. Stainless steel, 20mm wide, and it's fairly flexible. It's also fairly strong, despite the fact it's been drilled quite a lot. This is about the only stuff I could really find. I would have loved to get this tape like solid, but needs must. So what we're going to do with that is, as you can see by the bend, run it across for a strap and find some way to secure it to the car. I'm not just going to do that though, we're going to cover said engineer's tape in rubber. I have got specific tank strap rubber, which will go into it like that and keep the tank from moving around, because metal on metal still has the ability to slide, but the rubber will provide a bit of extra grip. And I think the IVA like to see that as well. Oh, what are these two things though? Well, let me tell you. This tank is quite clearly for a car that runs a carb. It's got one outlet spout and one vent. This isn't a return line. It sticks up and it sits right next to here. This line forms part of what makes the fuel pump go click. This has a whole vacuum thing, which we can get into some other thing. I can't really use that for a return. Plus, it's pretty thin. So, what I've got here is just a brass fitting, temporary of course, because it's not the greatest of flow either. But again, we can come back to that. And I'm going to drill a hole here and then tap just into the body of it. We're going to have to do some repairs, a bit of bodging, a bit of modification, but it's going to involve some TIG welding, so I'm not going to get hung up in it too much at this point. Operation first start does mean operation finished. So I'll get this in, and at least it gives us a return line working. Suppose I should butcher my tank first? No, I shouldn't, because where this goes is going to cause me problems, because where this is already causing me problems. Let me explain. My ideal strap route would be taken off from this point here, running up across, and then anchoring down here again. On this side, that's a perfect solution. On this side, however, you'll note that if I started here, we'd be fouling the filler line, and I'm not going to get a 20mm strap through there, so that's going to cause us a problem. We're going to have to look to a plan B. And if we're looking to a plan B, I don't want to put this fitting in and bugger my plan B as well. So, we'll sort the tank straps first and see what space we've got left to play with. So what have we done here? Well, you'll notice that I've made a captive double bolt thing that's going to go in the back here, and we've flattened down the top of it. That's to give it clearance so that when the tank goes in, it's not going to foul on it. So that now sits roughly about the same distance that this is, so that when the tank strap goes in, the tank itself will butt to the angle and it's not going to touch where the strap fastens. We also then double nut it from the back and it's nice and tight. Now all I need to do is tack it in place, repeat on the other side, and work out what we need to do on this side. So yes, we've mounted these at an angle so that when I bolt down, it's going to put tension on this. If you haven't worked this out by now, you're probably watching the wrong channel. Similarly, we've got washers here just to spread the load, because we've only got one bolt. I don't feel like putting two in this side for reasons. So that will stop us binding, pulling out, potentially damaging this. Now I know this is still got, looks like it's got a wee bit of slack in it. I've not put the rubber in, but we'll get to that when it's time to tart it up. You'll also note this little washer has a crescent on the end that I've buffed into it. That's just to stop it cutting in as well. just makes things a wee bit neater and gives the straps half a chance of surviving. I'm going to go and dance my way over to the board. First thing I get to tick off this list, which clearly is in no particular order. Done. That's the fuel system. Well, the fuel issues that are going to be part of the fuel system resolved. We've got a tank in, we've got a fuel pump in, it's all mounted, it's all nice. We'll have a wee bit of a tidy up, run a filter and a line to the front when it's time for the first start, but that will take me all of 2 minutes, and it's going to be temporary anyway with cable ties, so there's no point in covering it until it's a permanent fix. Therefore, we're ready on the fuel side. Next up, I have found a solution to this alternator, I think, and we're going to cover it at some point in our next episode, which is going to be exhaust. Why? Because I like building exhaust. So, we'll be covering that the next time we're on the low cost. Next week though, we'll probably be looking at the Impreza again. All that remains for me to do now is to thank all our Patreons who are running up the side of the screen, and they're actually still on the side of this board, I hasten to add. Without your support, none of this low cost stuff happens, guys, so appreciate it. If you don't know what that's about, patreon.com/toolsandtrack. Go be a bro and help out a bro. That works. If that's not for you, that's fine. Hit subscribe, please, for the love of God, because it's the only way we go. And the bell and the light and whatever else is down there. I don't even look anymore. It doesn't bother me. If that's not it, fine, cool. Thanks for watching anyway. Appreciate the support. Until the next time, guys, drive safe. Now, yes, Now, the fact that that's not perfectly flat was giving me a bit of a debate. I'll get this right eventually. Now,